Paper is a motion on setting ambitious targets for job creation. I will ask the clerk to read the motion.
That this Assembly supports an innovative and inclusive economy which provides opportunities for all, highlights the need to create more and better jobs across the skills spectrum, supports, in particular, growing key sectors such as digital, agri-tech, advanced manufacturing, life and health sciences and fintech, is clear that the benefits of new employment must encompass rural communities as well as our towns and cities, stresses the importance of understanding and addressing the needs of businesses and employers, and calls on the Minister for the Economy to set ambitious targets to grow the Northern Ireland economy in this Assembly term, including through creating 5,000 new tech jobs.
Thank you, and I call Gary Middleton to move the motion.
Moved.
Thank you. The Business Committee has agreed to allow up to 1 hour 30 minutes for this debate. The proposer of the motion will have 10 minutes to propose and 10 minutes to wind. As an amendment has been selected and is published on the marshalled list, the Business Committee has agreed that 15 minutes will be added to the total time for the debate. Please open the debate on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker. As we embark on this new chapter in the Northern Ireland Assembly, we have an opportunity to make Northern Ireland an even better place to work, to live and to invest in. The new executive working together can make a positive difference to the economic and social well-being of so many across our society. It is imperative that we set about growing the economy through ambitious targets that will drive growth, prosperity and opportunity for all of our people. The motion we have brought today is calling on the Minister to set ambitious targets, creating more and better jobs, which in turn will lead to better prosperity for those we are here to serve. Over the past 15 years or more, there has been significant progress, and we must recognise how far the Northern Ireland economy has actually come. Since 2007, Invest NI has created over 50,000 jobs and punched well above our weight within the UK in terms of securing record levels of investment. We have seen positive change in infrastructure and public realm, our education sector and skills and training. We've seen investment in our universities and our further education colleges. This, of course, should not be the limit of our ambition. More can and should be done to ensure that the benefits of new employment and new opportunities are felt by the most disadvantaged in our society. Our Executive and the Economy Minister must work together to address those inequalities which continue to exist. That means encompassing rural communities as well as our towns and our cities, encouraging investment in all of Northern Ireland, north, south, east and west, focusing on need and targeting areas of higher deprivation. This does not mean penalising or taking away from our areas of higher economic activity. We need our capital city to thrive. The success of some of the investment and major employers secured there can have a ripple effect throughout the province. But as the phrase goes, a rising tide lifts all boats. But we must recognise that there have been areas which have been left behind. The Economy Minister and the new Executive now have a chance to build on the work which has already been started, but also charting a new path to ensuring no part of our communities are left behind. Growing the economy requires us firstly to listen and then respond to the needs of our constituents, our businesses, our educators and investors. From a Northwest perspective, we have seen firsthand where business and education leaders, politicians and agencies working together can deliver real change on the ground. It also means talking up our offering and our strengths rather than talking down the place that we want to see prosper. That collaboration is a model which I believe can be built upon, and if we lean into that, I believe that we can see new opportunities ahead. That, of course, means acknowledging where things can be improved and done better, they should be. We must ensure that those who are advocating for Northern Ireland overseas have the tools that they require to promote all parts and all regions within our economy. The Lions review of Invest NI was timely, and it was a timely opportunity to take stock and reflect on the strengths and weaknesses of the organisation whilst acknowledging the clear value of the work that they do. Mr Deputy Speaker, I was encouraged to hear from the new Chief Executive, Kieran Donoghue, at the Economy Committee that and I've no doubt that his experience will be invaluable to bringing new ideas and new life to Invest NI. We can't expect investors to choose Northern Ireland if they are faced with a raft of new restrictions. We should take best practice from other countries and about how they have made strides towards regional balance, whilst also welcoming all investment opportunities to our shores. I also want to highlight that one of the most important ways to create jobs is to support our small businesses. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy. We must make it easier for small businesses to start up and grow and succeed. We need to see a continuous focus on entrepreneurship and startups. I urge the Minister to work with our SMEs to create an environment where innovation can flourish and where businesses of all sizes can thrive. That means working with the Department for Infrastructure and local councils to address frustrations around the planning system. Too much investment has been lost with unnecessary delays and burdens on those wanting to invest and create employment. At the Economy Committee last week, we heard from Renewables NI about the lack of investment here due to delays, costs and bureaucracy. If we're to meet our net zero targets, we need urgent change. It also means working with the Education Minister to ensure that we have a pipeline of skilled workers being educated and trained to meet the demands of the future. It means working with the Health Minister to invest in the health and well-being of our citizens to ensure that they live long, healthy and productive lives, making work pay and improving workers' rights across the board. Of course, we live in a rapidly changing global economy where technology is transforming industries and creating new opportunities at an unprecedented pace. Our province has become a global leader in cyber, fintech and advanced manufacturing. At the centre of the 10X economic strategy was a clear commitment that we must focus our attention on the emerging sectors that are best placed to add value to the regional economy and consolidate Northern Ireland's place both as a global destination for investment and a small advanced economy. The 10X strategy noted that the potential for there to be a demand for thousands of new employees in the 10X sectors every year for the next 10 years, including 2,500 in digital, ICT and creative industries, 1,500 in advanced manufacturing and engineering, and 1,000 in agri-tech. In fact, the 5,000 new tech jobs targeted and cited in our motion and in our manifesto is likely to be an underestimate of the potential growth within these priority sectors, and we would be more than happy to work with the Minister and other parties to advocate being even more ambitious going forward. But of course, if jobs are to be created, the talent and skills on which they depend also need to exist. The 10X skills strategy noted that Northern Ireland's tech sector is growing and provides one of the focal points for Northern Ireland's 10X economy, yet the sector is struggling to recruit the talent needed to fulfil Northern Ireland's potential. Our people are our most valuable asset. We must invest in their education and training so they have the skills and the knowledge that they need to succeed in the 21st century economy. It is crucial that career services are fit for purpose, supporting young people and those seeking to upskill or reskill to choose appropriate pathways and high-value pathways, both in terms of job quality and growth potential. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in closing, I believe that in the remaining time of this Assembly term, we do have an opportunity to create an environment where businesses can thrive and where people can find good and well-paid jobs. That is why we're calling on the Economy Minister to set ambitious targets for job creation in Northern Ireland. We have the talent and we have the determination, but we need the Executive and His Majesty's Government to deliver the resources. And I'm confident that by working together we can meet the targets going forward. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
And thank you. I now call Sinead McLaughlin to move the amendment.
So moved.
And thank you. You have 10 minutes to propose and 5 minutes to wind on the amendment. All other speakers will have 5 minutes. Please open the debate on the amendment.
Thank you, Speaker. I welcome this motion and our amendment today on the need for ambitious targets for job creation. It is often said that what you don't measure, you can't achieve. That is no truer than when considering the change that is needed in our economy. whether it is our stubbornly high rate of economic inactivity, which remains at 6.8% higher than the UK average, or low productivity that remains 17% below the UK average, or the unacceptable disability employment gap of 44%. There's still a lot of work to do in order to ensure that our economy truly works for all. The reality is that none of those gaps will be closed if we do not measure the progress that we are making. If we don't set targets, how do we know if public policy is having an impact? Without a target, how would any business know if it was on track to make a profit? More to the point, how would any family know that they were able to stay within their own budgets? These are targets that can apply to every sector. Although our amendment did not remove the figure of 5,000 technology jobs, as we have no particular objection to it, the truth is that this is largely an arbitrary figure, and the process of determining targets should be more thought through and should be set for all sectors, recognising the unique selling points of different regions. While there's often a focus on technology sector, each region and each industry has a particular contribution to make to Northern Ireland. And those contributions should be recognised in the targets that we set. And we also need to go beyond targets for job creation in order to deal with those challenges that I have mentioned. But the aim of these targets cannot just be to grow the economy, otherwise we are in danger of continuing the perverse imbalances and inequalities that exist today, which allow those areas that are doing well to do even better still, while those places like Derry and the West will be allowed to fall further and further behind. The aim instead must be to grow and rebalance the economy, to end the postcode lottery of jobs, opportunity and investment, and reverse the regional inequalities that have been allowed to fester and that have created a two-tier economy where wealth is concentrated in some places and not in others, where the difference between the council areas with the highest and lowest levels of economic inactivity is over 10%, where the difference in the levels of gross disposable income is over £4,000. If you're from the most deprived area of Northern Ireland, you're 3.5 times more likely to have no educational qualifications at all, and twice as less likely to be degree educated. Most of all, people living in the highest levels of deprivation are likely to die up to 7 years earlier than those in the most affluent. Targets must also apply to our Economic Development Agency, InvestNI. It really is unacceptable that recent figures demonstrate that only 7.9% of visits by foreign direct investors are hosted by InvestNI over the past 10 years took place west of the ban. Those figures included only 14 visits to Fermanagh and South Tyrone and only 13 visits to West Tyrone. So the targets must be sub-regional, they must be time-bound and they must be measurable. It is only through measuring targets and identifying the need that we will be able to put in place the kind of deliberate and intentional interventions needed in the places where the market and policy has failed. I call those kinds of interventions positive discrimination, because that is what is needed when decades of neglect and failed economic policy have left communities struggle in generational cycles of policy. I listened very carefully to Pat Sheehan in the earlier debate, and I couldn't agree with him more. Poverty destroys lives and destroys communities. Job creation is about wealth creation, particularly our most deprived communities, so people can escape those cycles of poverty. For me, targets are about tackling inequities and interjecting when market failure is happening. It is at the heart of economic and social justice. It is welcome that the Minister has committed to sub-regional targets, at least for InvestNI, particularly given his predecessor's reluctance to do so. In the last mandate, I was told time and time again that investment is demand-led, that businesses follow that demand, and that government's job is not to direct investment. This analysis ignored any need for government to create the conditions necessary for that investment. It appears that that tune has finally changed. But I can't help feeling that we are so far behind the curve when we are still debating whether to introduce economic targets. Let's look at elsewhere. The South is light years ahead. Their Economic Development Agency, the IDA, already targets half of all FDI investments to regional locations. And their National Planning Framework targets 5 cities for 50% of overall national growth, specifically targeting those regions that have been left behind. Even closer to home, we have seen how targets can orientate government thinking. Scarcely a week goes by in this place where we do not talk about climate targets, about how much the government has yet to do in order to meet them, and about the consequences of our failure if we do not. The climate targets have become a northern star for departments and for strategies. So if it's good enough on the climate crisis, then why is it not good enough on the economy? Of course, targets are meaningless without action, and we have all become far too familiar with the news of targets missed on hospital waiting lists and public service reform. We cannot allow targets to become yet another casualty of the dysfunction here. There needs to be consequences of missing those targets. In our view, that consequence should take the form of financial stimulus packages. So when a target is missed, a financial stimulus package is put in place in that sector or in that place to reverse that failure. All of this should, in my mind, be underpinned by ambitious and binding legislation. And although this motion calls on the Minister for the Economy to act, we need to recognise that he cannot do this alone. Every government department needs to adopt a sub-regional approach to their policies, strategies and plans. That will require strong leadership from the Department for the Economy, and it needs everyone to buy in. We need to measure the life expectancy between different places, to set targets for more investment in the right trusts. We need to measure infrastructure deficits, to intervene in the West where the need is the greatest. We need to measure school attainment, to set targets where our children are being failed and fallen behind. We need everyone in this endeavour, through statutory obligations, annual reporting and a legal framework on how regional balance is addressed in government. By introducing this kind of legislation, we would be following examples of governments from around the world who have acted before us. I have already outlined the approach of the South, but there are countless other examples as well, such as the 2002 Regional Development Act in Finland, which requires government to set national development targets, or the 2002 Regional Development Victoria Act in Australia, or the commitment on regional balance in Germany's constitution. Those countries recognise that a person's life chance should not be determined by their postcode. So why won't we? I would invite the Minister once again to accept the need for this legislation in his response to this debate. In summary, I would like to commend the proposers of the motion and ask the Assembly to support our call and our amendment for regional balance. It is only through finally measuring how far we have yet to go that we can move forward towards a vision we all share, which is an economy that works for everyone. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. I call Phillip McGuigan.
The Economy Minister set out his economic vision a month ago today. That vision was based on creating good jobs, increasing productivity, tackling regional imbalances and transitioning to net zero. So Sinn Féin will be supporting both the motion and the amendment today. We can absolutely endorse the calls for an inclusive and innovative economy, and one that prioritises jobs and investment. I feel it's only fair, though, to point out that the previous 7 ministers responsible for the economy have been members of the DUP. I also note that the 10X strategy, which was overseen by the previous 3 DUP ministers and constantly referenced, did not set targets for job creation in new tech or any other sector for that matter. I think it's great, therefore, to see that just after 6 weeks in the post, that the DUP now have finally confidence in an economy minister, one that they can come forward with a motion that references 5,000 new tech jobs. So that is very good. The Economy Minister has set out a positive vision and step change for our economy, and that should be our focus. In the past, we have seen investment and economic policy being shaped on the premise that every job being a good job. This resulted in businesses being given financial support to create jobs that were low paid, insecure and offering little opportunity for career progression. The current Economy Minister's focus on good jobs should be commended by all parties as a means to ensure funding for jobs assistance by Invest NI and others is linked to the quality of that job. This will mean that jobs created with the help of public funding pay the real living wage and give workers secure terms and conditions. I note the overlap between this objective and the Minister's intention to bring forward an employment bill that will improve the rights of workers through banning things like zero-hour contracts, fire rehire practices, and improving workers' rights to a better work-life balance and ability to organise via trade unions. Improving these rights through legislation is the basis for delivering good jobs across the skills spectrum, as is mentioned in the motion, and improving the rights of workers should be the basis of any economic policy. Another key aspect of the Minister's vision is on the focus of net zero and delivering green jobs and the just transition from fossil fuels to clean energy. A shortfall of the previous 10X strategy was the lack of focus on green skills and renewable energy. Despite the vague mention of new tech, the 10X strategy critically overlooked the importance of the green economy and job opportunities contained within it. Studies by the Nevin Economic Research Institute show the vast potential of the green economy. Currently, there are around 5,000 people employed in full-time green jobs in the north. However, this is expected to grow as more jobs become available in areas like renewable energy, manufacturing, retrofitting and conservation. The number of jobs created in a circular green economy could and should be substantial. So rather than trying to set arbitrary targets on job creation, which this motion seeks to do, let's look at the evidence, look at the need to move to net zero, and let's work together towards that. Having said that, Sinn Féin will support today's motion and the amendment to that motion, and we look forward to the Economy Minister implementing the vision that he announced some weeks ago.
Thank you. I call Saoirse Eastwood.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Yes, Alliance will be supporting both the motion and the amendment today. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody that's going to stand up and say they're not going to support more job creation. But, you know, I just want to echo some of what Sinead McLaughlin, the member for Foyle, said in her opening remarks for moving their amendment about the previous debate around education and poverty. And you know what? That is the most important thing we can take away from this. We can talk about job creation all we want, we can talk about skills. See, unless we're getting it right downstream, we're never going to get to the place where we can actually support ourselves in the north to have a thriving economy if we're not making sure that the workers are there. I could just pluck another figure out of the air, like we all seem to be doing today, and say, look, you know, we have a really high level of this cohort of people that are economically inactive. And for a lot of those people, that's going to be very genuine and they absolutely need to be supported. But see, for the other people that are within that do want to work, we're not going to be able to take them today and say, right, you've now moved from that register and you're in a tech job. And we're not going to be able to do that because we haven't spent the time getting them to a place where they can actually be conversant in the technology, be confident in themselves. I mean, I went to school in the Falls Road, and I'm telling you now, there were some people that I met from schools in that area a few years ago that said, you know, we can't even get some of our kids to get the bus into a different part of the town because they're anxious, because they don't feel confident enough. And that is really what we're talking about here at the bare bones of it. And see, unless we're actually speaking to that social inequality. And just another thing about the postcode lottery as well too. We're very privileged, David and myself, to be in Lycan Valley, one of the wealthiest areas in the north, probably one of the greatest super output areas. It has one of the least areas of deprivation, but there are pockets of deprivation, just like everywhere else in Northern Ireland. And, you know, someone said to me, I could take a child and see, given their postcode, I could plot out their educational pathway. And that still pertains to this day. And unless we actually get a grip on the importance of education and economy working together, we are never going to be able to crack this nut. The other point that I would like to make, and we've had a wee bit of politics here across the floor about, oh, well, you held economy for this and you held it for that. Grand, love it, here for it. But, you know, the main thing is, see, if we constantly keep collapsing the place, we're never going to get anything accomplished. And that's the bottom line. So that's why we need to move to reform as a matter of priority. When we talk about opportunities for all, it's important that we are inclusive, but we also need to look at where we are. And the stark reality is that, see, in Northern Ireland, we have the biggest number of disabled people who want to work, who are not able to work. In fact, I think we have the highest number of disabled people with a third-level qualification who cannot find work because they are not adequately supported by the system. And that needs to change. There's also talk about good jobs, and it kind of makes my teeth itch a wee bit. You're getting it all today. And the main reason being is that what is the actual indicator behind that? What's the metric behind that? There was a bit of a conversation one time at committee about, you know, wages, medium wage, whatever. A lot of people are never going to be able to earn that, and that's not what I want for them either. But if we're going to start bandying about terms that a job with such a wage is a good job, look at health and social care. The amount of debates that we've had already in this short time, that we will continue to have in this time around health and social care and other critical social and economic infrastructure. And in a month of Sundays, they're never making that. And that's not right. But we also can't lose sight of the fact that when we talk about tech, we also need to talk about people and our society, because every single one of our family members and our constituents will need to rely on health and social care workers in the days and months ahead. I also welcome the remarks from Sinn Féin about green skills. I believe we did have an amendment, wasn't selected, in relation to that, and that's incredibly important because we need to move ahead at speed. We had the utility regulator, we had people from Renewables and I at committee last week. We know that we are in a race against time whenever it comes to meeting climate, and unless we start educating and transforming our education and economy system, we're never going to get there. Just in terms of closing, we need to look at careers advice in schools, something I go on about all the time, something I'll continue to go on about all the time. This has been on the table since 2013, and now we're hearing about a portal, but the portal was talked about at least 10 years ago. So I would urge, yeah?
Thank you. Would the member agree with me when she makes reference to careers advice at schools that it's absolutely critical, and would you agree with me that it's appalling that there are some schools in Northern Ireland will not point their students in the direction of appropriate careers advice?
I agree entirely with the member and I thank him for his intervention. I mean, we also have the 14 to 19 strategy, 16 to 19 framework, the 2022 independent review of careers advice, also now the independent review of education. We know what they're going to say, we know what they are saying, but we need to get on and do it now. And I, for one, and Alliance, will stand with the Minister and indeed all other ministers relevant to try and make that happen, but we must move to that place now of action and not just words. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
And thank you. I call Tom Elliott.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, for that, and quite an interesting debate, and even a little politics in it that we got out of somewhere. But it is great. It's great for a community when they have a number of jobs. They have a choice of employment. That's great, whether it's in the public sector or the private sector. And you know, you almost know communities are thriving when you see people that are positive about that. And maybe it's great for the members of Lagan Valley to live in one of the wealthiest areas of Northern Ireland, but think of the rest of us out in the west and in Fermanagh and South Tyrone and Foyle or wherever that maybe doesn't have the wealthiest. But what I do not agree with is that just because you live in those areas that you can plot your way forward from a young age. Because people develop at different stages of life. People will take up different skills at various levels of their life. And I have to say there are some great people, great entrepreneurs who have come from places that are not as wealthy maybe as Lagan Valley. People that have come from the west of the province and other areas that have did exceptionally well. Happy to give way. Yeah.
Thank the member for giving way. The point I was simply trying to make was that it's not right that we have educational inequality to the extent that that will actually impinge upon their life chances, and that's what we need to get right. What I'm saying is that yes, there is a regional imbalance, but I'm sure the member would agree with me that we need to make sure that wherever you are, your postcode isn't dictating your life, your quality of life, or your educational or job prospects.
The member has an extra minute.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and I thank the member for the intervention. And yes, of course, your life shouldn't be determined by your postcode or where you're born or live, but a lot of people ensure that that's not the term, or that's not how their life evolves. They make their own choices in life. But I have to say that there is a range of skills that are not in Northern Ireland actually, that I think we need to develop, or at least they're not there in great quantities. And I hear the figure of 5,000. I'm not sure where that figure has came from, to be fair. But if there was a business came from America in the morning offering 5,000 jobs of a specific type, could we fulfil that? I don't believe we could at the moment. And that's one of the dangers that we have. And we have to look at employers in this sense as well. Where are the skills required? Because I hear a number of employers saying, I can't get the lorry drivers. I can't get the people to do the office administration. I can't get the healthcare workers that we have heard about. So there is a huge dearth of some skills that hasn't been identified. And I have to be fair to the regional colleges in a lot of instances. They have moved on from what I would have remembered as the old technical colleges. They do provide a much wider range of skills now than they used to, but that requires further development, particularly in areas that need those specific skills. Now, I'll point to even the South Tyrone area and Fermanagh and South Tyrone. That South Tyrone area has huge numbers of animal or food product production, but they also have the small engineering firms that require that type of skill that needs to be met by the regional colleges. And I think that's important as well. But I do have to say, I always like to support those Indigenous businesses, because we have witnessed so many foreign direct investment coming into Northern Ireland, and they don't last forever. They last a very short time and they're gone, whereas mainly those Indigenous businesses growing in the communities actually survive for much longer. I do have to say I can't not mention people like BT and EE that are reviewing their situation in Fermanagh and Enniskillen, and without giving enough information. I heard the Minister say today that even he can't get some of that information that the employers would like. I accept it's a private investment, it's a private company, but I just wish that they would be more open and transparent at this particular stage with their employees. These are very loyal employees, have been good to BT and EE over the years, and I think they deserve the respect now to at least be given the information. So I think it's a balance here. We need to balance this between upskilling our young people and making sure that they have the opportunities for the job opportunities that will be there. But it's also about supporting employers, because employers quite often feel that they're in a position where employees are often dictating to them. And I have to tell you one particular story where an employer was chatting one day, and just by accident he told me, you know, my 8 or 9 employees told me one day we're going down to a 4-day week. So they just told the employer they were going down to a 4-day week. Didn't matter what the employer thought or whether he thought they should still work their 5 hours on a Friday. They were just told that, and he felt very demoralised by that, because he said that it seemed that it was the tail wagging the dog. He didn't have a huge amount of pressure to be able to exert on them to say, well, look, you just can't do that, and he felt very lonely and isolated in that. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. I call Patrick Delargy.
So I want to focus on 2 areas. I want to focus on productivity, and I want to focus on regional balance. And I would begin by echoing a lot of what Mr. Elliott has said actually around here and in my own constituency. Those skills gaps, and particularly the fact that colleges have stepped on very ably to plug those gaps and to be responsive to the economic needs in the area. One of the issues has been the relatively low productivity levels which we've seen, in which employers have continued to want to hire more staff, to grow, to invest, but they are finding that they're struggling to get people with those right skills. So we have seen that the North has lower productivity levels, for example, than in Britain, and that successive DUP economy ministers have failed to get to grips with that despite holding that portfolio for a number of years. So I think improving that access to skills will be key to narrowing the productivity gap further over the next coming years. And the Minister has already indicated his intention to improve those opportunities for people to upskill, to reskill, through a range of programmes, including all-age apprenticeships, which will be a game changer for skills, and which will mean that workers in later life particularly can earn as they learn, can reskill and upskill without having to pay for their own apprenticeship learning. So notably, the productivity gap has closed slightly in recent months. However, productivity remains on average at 11% below the rate in Britain, and actually, according to a recent study, at almost 40% below the rate in the South. So I trust that the Economy Minister's vision and policy stemming from that will close this gap further. That means utilising dual market access to grow domestic exports and to attract highly productive FDI. It means developing all-Ireland clusters in high productivity sectors that are key to driving economic progress and productivity. And as my colleague Mr McGuigan said, Sinn Féin will vote for the amendment today, and for the motion, outlining the need to promote regional balance and to tackle regional and rural inequalities that have kept our economy from being inclusive for so long. But I suppose what I would add is this: if I was an investor sitting here today, I would want to hear the positives. I want to hear the benefits that are coming from Derry, from the northwest, from regions right across the north. I'm proud to be from Derry. I'm proud to call that place home. I think it's a fantastic place to live in, to work in, and to build a life in. So I think that I would concur with the comments of my colleague Mr Middleton. I think we need to start talking up areas like Derry. I think we need to start making sure that areas across the north are actually spoken about positively in this place, that we're talking up the positivity there, the people there, and the place. So I would, yes.
I think the member for giving way, and I think it's an important point, because quite often in the chamber we are subjected to very negative comments in relation to the Foyle constituency or indeed that region, when in reality, when it comes to Mr Elliott's comments as well about Fermanagh as well, there is some hugely successful businesses and entrepreneurs and those that come from those different regions that have had a pivotal role in the Northern Ireland economy, and if given the opportunity, could do much more.
Thank you. Totally agree. I mean, I've spoken to dozens of companies, FDI in particular, but regional companies as well, who have spoken about that, and dozens of them who can bear testimony to the fact that they have set up business in Derry, that they've grown that business, and that they've created a huge number of regional jobs. The one thing that they're saying all the time is that the reason they're here is because of people. The reason they're here is because of what we have to offer and what's unique. So I would totally agree with that, because what I'm hearing all the time in my constituency is that people want to talk about the future. They want to hear about the positive opportunities that we have. And that lines up exactly with what Conor has set out as Economy Minister in terms of looking at how Invest NI do business, in terms of looking at that regional balance, in terms of investing in City of Derry Airport and in growing Places McGee. So I think we have a lot to talk about and a lot to talk up in terms of our region. The Minister's vision also talks about transforming and reorganising Invest NI into new regional structures, and that's dedicated to homegrown small and medium-sized businesses and to start-up companies as well. And once implemented, these forms will enable Invest to operate regional offices across the north, which will work on an inclusive basis and in partnership with councils, with the business community, with trade unions and with local enterprise agencies. So I think that model will be a game changer. It will decentralise Invest NI, and it will provide a greater focus on investor visits, job assistance, job creation being delivered more equally across the north. So while I won't dispute any of the relevance of the industries within 10X, that's already been covered in detail. When I do speak to people in my own community and business owners, they're quick to point out that the 10X strategy never focused on construction, on tourism, on social enterprise, and all of those sectors have huge job opportunities, labour shortages and skills progression. So that's something which I think we'll see a lot more of in the future, and I think that's a very positive development. The Minister's vision goes beyond that and will create an economy that will benefit workers, families and businesses of all size and of all sectors.
Thank you. I call David Honeyford.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I am feeling well, so I'm trying to be positive in this. And to be honest, when I read the motion out of frustration, I honestly didn't know where to start. But we will support, and anybody would support this. But I don't think any of us would disagree with anything on a motion that calls for more jobs. However, the focus should be on how we deliver, not on a random pluck a figure that this motion leaves us with none the wiser. It's about delivery, not about words. And I suppose I want to start by getting the elephant out of the room, addressing the needs of businesses and employers, an interesting line from the party that campaigned and voted for Brexit. and therefore for trade friction. And from a party that took a huff for 2 years and pulled this assembly down and left our business community to get on with it and to sort issues out for themselves. And now, when we have an election coming up, there's a road to Damascus conversion. And I said at the start, I wasn't sure where to start, but I will start. Reforming this assembly is where business needs us to start. That no single party can collapse this place. That we have a guarantee of stability for our business community. It's the business community that creates the jobs. It ain't us. And that's the point I think that's missing in this. To give inward investment the security of stability, to invest. Any business will tell you that that's the starting point. Stability is the starting point. We all want 5,000 new jobs. Pluck a figure, why not make it 10,000? We absolutely all want our economy to grow and to go. But surely we should be agreeing the changes that are needed to grow our economy and then measure the outcomes of that. This is like giving a football team down the leagues, down the divisions, a target of winning the Premier League, but you don't give them anything to change. You don't give them any help, you don't give them any resources, and you don't give them anything, just give them a target that you have to achieve to win the Premier League. It's completely unrealistic unless you look at changes that need to happen. And I hope we can all stand and support policy changes that are going to be needed for our business communities to flourish. And I hope the Minister will bring those policy changes forward quickly, because we have a limited window of opportunity and it needs to happen now. Our job here is to set the conditions to allow that to happen. It was said about the last 15 years of some sort of romantic notion. Recent reports have said we're actually below the UK average over the last 15 years. Yeah, comparing ourselves to the UK, and growth is hardly the benchmark that we want to set our ambition by. The potential we have here needs a holistic approach that addresses every element of our economy, be that, as my colleague Saoirse has said, about education, about higher education and coming through. All of this is interconnected. But what is really important is those changes aren't held back and restricted by constitutional ideologies. Because without us in here getting serious, and some of us leaving our political ideology at the door and starting to create the conditions that our business community needs, because if we don't, we're creating barriers before we even start. And if we continue doing what we've been doing, this is nothing more than a pipe dream. Our business community needs this chamber to build the road. If it's a road, we need to build the road, and our public services and this, we need to be in one lane and stay out of the road of the rest and allow our business community to flourish. We need major change, and Alliance want to see that change and look for where we can work in partnership across this island and within these islands. And I would ask the Minister what actions have happened to deliver essential collaboration between the IDA and InvestNI, because that needs to happen right now. We need financial investment into skills and apprenticeships, creating more opportunities for creating technical universities from our FE sector. I've raised that before. And again, what is the Minister doing to develop this sector? These are the answers and the things we need to be discussing. A great start would actually be to value our FE staff and enhance the pay and conditions that they live in. Absolutely.
Thank you for taking that. Do you think it's negative to state facts? Or do you think it's okay to come in here and brush over actual economic facts? And it should be about delivery. We're not saying it in a negative sense. We're saying this needs fixed. We need to collectively fix it now. We can't come over in here and blow smoke up everybody's whatever, because we need to actually deal with what's straight in front of us and be realistic.
Okay, the member has an extra minute. Carry on.
Absolutely agree. And you can only start where you are. And where we are, and the facts of where we are, is we are one of the poorest regions of Europe, and we need to work from that point and grow from there. That is the place we're at, and that's when you're doing it. I totally agree. It's not. You have to be realistic and starting your starting point and where your end goal. But how does business create 5,000 new jobs without financial support to grow? Or without restricted access to bank funding and debt markets so the business can actually invest in themselves? And how does business create 5,000 new jobs if our current planning system that at best can be described as seriously lax delivery, is still in place? How does business create new tourism jobs when the ETA has been enforced by GB? And while, for example, we have a Wild Atlantic Way product across the rest of the island, but it stops at the border. Alliance will always be up for creating conditions in our economy to grow, and our vision is based on evidence for growth. And we will support the motion, but we need to get real.
Thank you. I call Stuart Dixon.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I'm continuing in the vein of my colleagues in this debate this afternoon. The reality is that an ambition for our economy without direction is pointless. And the journey ahead of us demands a very clear focus, not just on the quantity, but also the quality of the jobs across the skills spectrum. Despite our start-stop politics, we've made strides in some areas. For example, we have made a start to bridging the rural-urban digital divide. However, much more needs to be done to accelerate this, to ensure equal opportunity in an increasingly digital economy, especially as more people than ever want to and do work from home. I will.
Thank you, Member, for giving way. Would he accept and acknowledge the fact that the broadband connectivity now in Northern Ireland is a huge selling point, particularly for those jobs in more rural, isolated areas as we tilt towards a more technology-driven economy?
Absolutely. Indeed, the members just repeated the words that I have said. Other work is needed to grapple with the systemic issues that continue to cast a shadow over our potential, however. Economic inactivity that's also been referred to, particularly among the long-term sick or those with disabilities, remains stubbornly high, providing a key opportunity for organisations like the many social enterprises that operate and deliver across Northern Ireland. And I hope that this mandate will give the Minister the opportunity to provide more legislation to support our social enterprises. Productivity continues to lag, and ongoing brain drain is being detrimental to our skills economy as young people continue to leave to seek better opportunities elsewhere, attending universities in the rest of the United Kingdom or Ireland, or indeed leave here to emigrate with their qualifications. It's important that we endeavour to create a more balanced, productive economy, one that is in step with the demands of decarbonisation and our increasing difficulties in the environment, ready to face those challenges and opportunities that climate change offers, one that will deliver for each person, for us in the world of work. Achieving this will require us to go back to basics. Look at the cost of division in our education system. If we could invest that money in our education system to deliver for our young people, if we could spend that money in a more focused education system that delivers for all, then we would not only give people the best chance in education, but we would also have a much more qualified and better qualified workforce that would be attractive to business in Northern Ireland. Delivering reform of this Assembly would provide that assurance to business going forward. In terms of more and better jobs across the spectrum, to deliver this, we need to ensure there is no hierarchy of qualifications, but qualifications that meet the needs of business and people, that we're not putting all of our eggs in one basket. We must equally consider the vast range of qualifications, whether it's an NVQ, a primary degree, a diploma to apprenticeship, a PhD. We need to be able to deliver for everyone. Even more, let's not forget our unique position post-Brexit. With our dual market access in the UK and the EU, we're perfectly poised to drive growth, attract investment and create jobs. What we do need is stability in this institution. To achieve this, to give us more appropriately qualified workforce ready to meet the demands of both markets. As we look to the future of our economy and job creation, we need to set targets that are not just ambitious targets, but that they are smart targets that reflect on our unique position in the UK and the EU. These targets must be underpinned by planning and adequate resources. There's no point in bringing in that today, which is good, but won't be here tomorrow. It's about providing opportunities that will be valuable and adaptable to our citizens, not just today, but down the line in the future. With this in mind, I do call on the Minister for the Economy to go beyond the usual metrics. Instead, let us devise a strategy that is resilient, builds on our strengths and creates lasting benefits to build jobs for all in Northern Ireland. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank the member. All members who've expressed a wish to speak have done so, so I now call on the Minister for the Economy to respond. And Minister, you have up to 15 minutes.
And I want to thank the members for the debate. It was very informative, a lot of very good points that were made during the course of it. And again, with the I apologise, I missed the debate last week when I was away on travels, but the nature of the debates, particularly around the economy, have been very constructive, and I hope that that continues in that vein, that we collectively realise that we can, if we pull together, we can make a distinct improvement in terms of some of the problems, and I don't underestimate the challenges and the problems that there are in our economy, and in particular areas in our economy, and that's what has focused me in terms of trying to provide strategic focus to the department. And I outlined that vision with the focus on good jobs, on regional balance and productivity, decarbonisation, and I was glad to see that in this debate, as in previous debates, and I am aware of the debate last week, that there's a high level of consensus around this. The ambition to create 5,000 jobs, and some people have wondered where the figure came from. I think that it may follow on from an ambition set out a new decade, new approach. I have to say I like Stuart Dixon's approach of smart targets rather than just arbitrary targets, but nonetheless I think it's useful to have targets anyway. The new decade, new approach set out to achieve 5,000 cyber security professionals by 2030, and currently there are approximately 10,000 people employed in the software sector and 15,000 employed in fintech or financial services. But the rise of digitisation and AI means there will be tech jobs in nearly every sector of our economy, from retail to agriculture to advanced manufacturing and cyber security. So the challenge is to manage this revolution in technology in a way that supports good jobs, innovation and productivity, regional balance and the transition to net zero. A key indicator of a good job is the level of pay. Currently 15% here jobs here pay less than the real living wage, and this figure must come down. I want everyone to earn at least the real living wage. The sectors highlighted in the motion are higher paying, so growing these sectors should increase the number of higher paying jobs in the economy. And while developing these sectors, we must be aware of the need to ensure that women and people with disabilities can access opportunities. There's a gender employment gap of around 7% and a gender pay gap of approximately 8%. Evidence suggests that this gap is connected to the higher prevalence of women in part-time employment. 23% of part-time jobs are low paid compared to 6.4% of full-time jobs. So part of the solution is more affordable childcare support, and I am keen to work with the Department of Education to take this forward. People with caring responsibilities would benefit from more flexible working patterns. Members are aware that I will bring forward a wide-ranging good jobs bill in this mandate. The Assembly debated a motion last week on the importance of protecting workers' rights, and while I could not be in the Chamber myself for that debate, I was pleased to hear the level of support across the Chamber for ambitious new employment rights legislation. Flexible working arrangements will be included in the consultation, which will inform the contents of the bill, because remote or hybrid work, along with flexible working patterns, provide opportunities for more people to take up employment. The sectors outlined in today's motion are high productivity industries that will improve our overall economic performance. Our dual market access as a result of the Windsor Framework provides us with a significant opportunity to grow exports on both a north-south and an east-west basis. To maximise the benefit of this unique market access, we will need to have the right level and mix of skills demanded by these sectors. This means supporting higher level skills development and ensuring that our skills system is responsive to evolving need. Our City and Growth deals provide a platform in which to grow jobs in these sectors. Again, provision of relevant skills for those investments will be key. My department will enable clusters of companies, universities and colleges to flourish both regionally and on an all-island basis. This will build on the previous work on priority sectors and will be a key driver of exports, job creation and regional productivity growth. The motion highlights the need to ensure that good jobs are available in rural as well as urban locations, and the amendment highlights the need for targets to address regional imbalance. Regional balance is one of my core priorities. My department, along with InvestNI, will work in partnership with local councils, local enterprise agencies, the business community and the community and voluntary sector to identify regional challenges and strengths. This collective effort will enable targeted action to develop local businesses and incentivise investment in areas with real regional strengths.
And while high-quality FDI has an important role to play, the majority of job creation over the next few years will be from our own Indigenous entrepreneurs. We already have significant assets at local level. Our regional further education college network in particular is an asset that we can further leverage for economic development, a point I think Mr Honeyford made. As I have discussed the need for targets on regional balance with the new Chief Executive of Invest NI, and these will be aligned to a wider regional plan which will be co-designed with regional partners and stakeholders. Although it's not mentioned in the motion, others have raised the issue, decarbonisation offers opportunities to realise its policy goals as well as being necessary in its own right. We have a legal and moral obligation to drive down emissions and meet our net zero commitments, and we can and must do this in a way that creates more and better jobs. The green economy is an area of enormous potential. We already possess specialities in areas such as green hydrogen, and the green industry sector will be a source of productivity and jobs growth across the region. We have the capacity to become a global leader in the green economy, developing locally the solutions, products and services that will be used around the world. We have resources including wind, biomethane and geothermal, not only to become self-sufficient, but to become an exporter of affordable renewable energy. And we have the strategic opportunities to collaborate across the island through the single electricity market to support these aims. I want to now turn to some of the points raised in the debate by the various members. There are a huge number of issues, most of which I find myself in agreement with. I think Gary Middleton had raised points around regional deprivation and balance, or areas of deprivation and regional balance. I'm glad to see that he has welcomed the appointment of the new CEO and the experience that he brings to Invest, and also his experience from the south, where regional balance has been done in a more successful way than perhaps has been done up to this point here. I agree that with himself and many others who mentioned the need for the skills pipeline, and I think the point that Saoirse Eastwood made, that the skills pipeline will be served if we get back down to the start point of it, and that's to ensure children get the best possible start, young people get the best possible careers advice, and all of the pathways that are available to people going through life are offered up to them, and make sure that they're fully aware and that their parents are aware of the pathways that are available to them. And that is something that I have already spoken to the Education Minister, and I'm very happy to take up an area of work with him in that regard, to make sure that our colleges, our university system, our schools are all fully utilised to make sure the best opportunities for young people emerge. Sinead McLaughlin had mentioned the sub-regional and the track record in terms of visits from Invest NI, and that does not make for good reading. I accept that, and that's something that has to change. The Invest NI already have the power, and many agencies use that power across that are promoting jobs and promoting the economy, to use their own financial incentives to ensure that government policy is met, and that's what I will expect Invest NI to do that in future. And in terms of other departments, we've had a commitment in the programme for government for, I'm sure, almost a decade now for regional balance. What we need, so departments have that they should be adhering to. We need to make sure that all departments step up to the plate in that regard. I think Saoirse Eastwood mentioned that the ability to return to work and the value. I think also Stuart Dixon mentioned the social enterprises play in that regard. And the difficulty for us is that we have lost the EU funding which supported that endeavour. That has been replaced in a very sporadic and uncertain way by a shared prosperity fund. And I think part of the discussion we will have with Treasury in the time ahead is to get more certainty in relation to that funding. But that was clearly a significant gap left in the Department of the Economy's budget, one which we managed to plug during COVID, but that has been left now unfilled, and that is something that we want to concentrate on in the time ahead. Saoirse will also mention the definition of good jobs, and she herself said it's much more than simply pay, and I think that's true. There are other areas that are already included in the indicator: that demands aren't excessive, provides employment security, offers opportunities for career development, offers discretion over how work is organised, provides social support from management and co-workers as well as union representation, permits participation in organisational decision making, is safe to undertake, and provides for work-life balance. Now, I have asked Dr. Lisa Wilson to work with the department with a review of these indicators and help us establish the best means of monitoring the creation of good jobs. Dr. Wilson would also help us to produce data that would allow for more analysis on that issue. So there is much more, as I say, to good jobs than simply a wage packet. I take Padraig's Delargy's point about positivity about the region. Of course, we have to talk up our areas, and of course, when we do go to them, people have a good story to tell and they want support. But we don't ignore the challenges that there are across the region, and that challenges are also included in some of the urban areas of this city as well, where there's deprivation. So I think we need to be mindful of promoting the positives, but also not forgetting the challenges. And I accept, in terms of targets in that regard, that we will be judged at the end of this 3 years on what we deliver in relation to what we've set out. I accept that, and I'm quite happy to be judged in relation to what we produce at the end of this 3-year period. I think David Honeyford's point about stability, and I think Stuart Dixon made the same point about the political stability, was one of the main aspects of discussion we had in the States this week, was about dual market access and political stability. And those are critical to trying to develop this programme of work and many other programmes of work in terms of reform and reform in our health service, our education service. All of those have required political stability. They also require funding, and that's another matter that the Executive has to deal with Treasury, and they require more than an annual budget, which doesn't allow for planning in the longer term, but they certainly are. We have said we're very happy to discuss the issue of how we achieve political stability in terms of the institutions, and we are here to do this job for the long haul. I think some of the other points related to FE sector, and quite clearly we need to continue to work with our FE sector. I think we've accepted, and I've accepted, that it's underutilised, that it has a very significantly good estate which has been invested in by previous economy ministers, and I acknowledge that, and that we need to ensure that that is linked in right through our education system. It's a critical key component part in what should be a seamless education system from nursery school right through to the end of people's academic pursuits. So, last Concordia, I'm very glad to see there is a general agreement around the type of economy that we must aim for, but also wide recognition we must consider inclusion, whether women, people with disabilities, or people from rural areas or more deprived areas as well. And I welcome the substance of the motion and hope that this Assembly recognises it aligns very well with the economic vision that I have set out. I am focused on taking a comprehensive approach that will result in a highly productive, zero-carbon, regionally balanced economy which provides good jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for that response. I now call Mark Durkin to wind on the amendment, and the member has up to 5 minutes.
Deputy Speaker, I welcome and support the motion, and I'm glad of and grateful for support expressed for our amendment. It's imperative that the Executive does all it can to create jobs, to create opportunities, to create not just employment to help people keep themselves and their families, but employment and opportunities to help keep people here. The motion lists a number of sectors ideal for growth, and while that list isn't exhaustive, it is correct to identify jobs of the future in dynamic and tech industries. Pathfinders here have already made huge progress, and there's every reason to support the innovators of today to create the industries of tomorrow. Our universities need to be supported not only to grow, but to evolve, providing cutting-edge courses and producing more creators of ideas, employment and wealth to be retained locally. And when I say locally, I mean locally. The concentration of about 90% of our university places in Belfast is detrimental not just to regional balance and the economic and social well-being of my constituency and my constituents in Derry and so many other areas across the north. It's also holding Northern Ireland back. Nobody here will be surprised, therefore, that our amendment calls for the economy not just to be grown, but to be regionally rebalanced. Everywhere and everyone should enjoy any new opportunities, especially in areas that have been deprived of so much for so long. In today's debate, now, Mr. Middleton spoke of the need also to address inequalities and of the need for ambitious targets. And it made me wonder and regret that previous DUP economy ministers were so reluctant to address targets on a sub-regional level. My party colleague and proposer of our amendment pointed to effective economic policies adopted in other jurisdictions with fairness at their core. Philip McGuigan emphasised the importance of the green economy. not just in terms of saving our environment, but in terms of the economic opportunity it can and undoubtedly will create. Miss Eastwood felt lucky to hail from a more affluent area, but demonstrated a great empathy and understanding for those languishing in economic inactivity, unable to access work even when willing. Political stability is a point she touched on, and rightly so. You wouldn't build a house on shaky foundations, so companies are going to be an awful lot less willing to invest where there is political instability and uncertainty. We've seen and heard a lot of positivity on that front in recent times, but we've seen that before, and potential investors have seen it and heard it before as well. Messrs Elliott and Pádraig de Largy both heralded the role of our regional colleges in further education sector and upskilling our workforce to match the needs and demands of the market. And I agree with my constituency colleague Mr de Largy on the need for positivity, but there's also and always will be a need for honesty. Dairy has been failed and we want to fix that. And I welcome any prospective investors watching this to come and play their part in an exciting new chapter for our constituency and for the North. Mr Honeyford was also guilty of a wee bit of realism, and he also touched on the value of the FE sector and the need for fair pay for those working in it. The Minister, like others, wondered exactly where the 5,000 jobs figure came from. I think it came from a manifesto pledge of the DUPs, and the pattern we're seeing over the past couple of months from the big two parties seems to be picking motions based on manifesto pledges that their own ministers aren't responsible for. The figure itself, I don't know, is the case of we would build 5,000 jobs and we would make 5,000 more. I don't know, but I do question, given it was a manifesto pledge, was that based on a 5-year term, and therefore is it now even more ambitious that we've only got 3 years left? So maybe when he's winding, Mr Buckley, who's no stranger to ambition, might touch on that when he's winding up. He's no stranger to winding up either. Thank you.
And I'm about to ask him to do that just now. Members calling on Jonathan Buckley to conclude and wind up with the debate on the motion, and the member has 10 minutes.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and I thank the member for Foyle for that grand introduction. I suppose at this stage it's quite unique because I'm the third winder in this debate, given that the Minister stole those clothes, the member for Foyle, and now myself. It's got to a stage where everything has been said, but not everybody has said it. I have enjoyed the debates, Deputy Speaker, that the Economy Committee has engaged in. And you know what? In a large degree, there's a real sense of energy and a real sense of need. And I'm not going to go into the specifics of what every member has said, because that has been already alluded to by a number of speakers. But it sets out to me very clearly, and I agree very much with the member of Lagan Valley, Ms Eastwood, on this particular point, because the connection between careers and education and indeed jobs of the future, it's so important that we get that right to go forward, because everybody can have ambitious targets for job creation. And I think when we want to break this down, we look at a changing economy. Jobs of the future are not the same as jobs of the past. And Mr de Largy had mentioned about the two key issues, and I think it was important to raise these, which was the skills gap and productivity, and how addressing these is about preparing our people for future employment. But in order to do so, we have to have a careers service that is fit for purpose, that enables our employers to look to the workforce to fill the jobs of the future. And I think very much, members, that is where the intention of this motion was. It was looking at creating the conditions for employers to be able to fill these new and emerging jobs and new and emerging sectors. And going forward, it's going to be so important that these jobs do enter into the mix. They already have in some degree, but there's much more work to be done. Sinead McLaughlin mentioned in her amendment about what you don't measure, you can't achieve. And I think that is a fair comment. And in terms of the 5,000 jobs, whilst looking at a manifesto commitment, indeed going forward, the aspiration is endless of this place in terms of if it gets it right. But we have to try to put in place a structure that allows those employers to really benefit from areas of economic inactivity. And I think that was a point that was touched by both the Minister and indeed Mrs Eastwood again, about the level of those that are disabled that could contribute to the workforce, could close that productivity gap and skill, and could close that productivity gap and put people to work in very, very creative industries and create more jobs of the future. I think that is very admirable. I go back to the start of our debate in relation to our careers service. It's going to be so important that there's that vital link up. We talked about in the committee that we were not reaching our young people early enough to enable them to steer a course, a path towards a good job. I know we're open for debate as to what a good job is and how that's defined, but in a sense, everybody should have the ability to access a good job. And I think, yes, absolutely.
Gives way. I just want to agree with Johnny, and I think one of the great things that we've done early doors in the committee, and I know Mr Brett isn't here at the minute, but he has been very supportive of this, is the fact that we're going to have that joint session with the Education Minister and the Economy Minister, and I know all members were in agreement with that, and I would love for us to maybe then have another debate maybe on the floor of the House off the back of that, maybe at the back end of the year, because I do get the feeling that there is consensus from education and economy to drive that forward, and it's up to us as the scrutineers to push that.
Member for intervention, because I think it's crucial. It really is. If we're going to target these industries, like, these are not industries that should be shunned at, such as digital, agri-tech, advanced manufacturing, life and health sciences and fintech. These are the careers of the future. But if we're not getting that message downstream, as you did mention, quick enough, we run the risk of actually exacerbating the productivity gap. And I think that comes down to the targeted message. So when members talk, and I think it was also, again, Ms McLaughlin touched on this point quite well, I thought, which was in relation to the postcode lottery. It should not be about a postcode lottery. But in the same sense, I do agree, and he's just entered the room with Mr Elliott's earlier comments, were that there are people that have existed in those pockets of deprivation, of rural isolation, in some of those rural constituencies that have really been entrepreneurs far and ahead of those in urban and town centres, to be able to grasp the jobs of the future. I remember having a conversation with a significant business owner in Fermanagh, hospitality, who I presumed, because I felt that this was very much the case in town centres and our cities, was the fact that working from home had devastated town centres. And in many cases they have, because the workforce is no longer supporting those other indigenous businesses. The view was very different in Fermanagh. He was able to point to the fact that there was people that worked in London, in Cardiff, that had now come home again, that were supporting his own indigenous business. So I think one size does not fit all, and whenever we are going forward to look at the different aspects in the way in which our citizens can put themselves to good use to have a career of the future, have a job that's a good job, well-paying, and also enables them to develop into something else. I think the wording of this motion, it says about ambition, and I think the members of this House right across, regardless of parties, again mentioned by the Sinn Féin members about the growth of jobs in the renewable green sector. Absolutely, that's going to play a vital mix if we can get issues like planning in order to enable those jobs to become a reality. It certainly is a real opportunity for members to grasp. So from the Democratic Unionist Party's position, we welcome members' genuine engagement on this issue. We remain unashamedly committed to growing the Northern Ireland economy, and we want to see an ambitious approach taken towards creating better, well-paid jobs, which in turn will lead to greater prosperity for all. And I take the point, and I think it's something that we need to focus on. It's very, very easy in geographical locations for individual members to talk individual places down, and it's normally because we're dealing with very negative circumstances that we feel a motive and the need to speak out on. But for the international investor, whether it's on a local constituency point, I take the point They need to hear that there is a workforce, our people are our skill set. It's the job for us to make sure that they're well equipped and prepared for these jobs of the future, to ensure that we can not only have ambitious targets for job creation, but actually realise that potential of job creation. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
And thank you, Mr. Buckley, for concluding the debate. Members, the question is that the amendment standing in the names of Sinead McLaughlin and Daniel McCrossan be made. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question is that the motion as amended be agreed. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. Members, item 6 on the order paper, the adjournment. As you were advised earlier, the Speaker has been notified that the proposer will not be speaking to the adjournment topic